What if I told you that the difference between the world's wealthiest people and everyone else has almost nothing to do with talent, not intelligence, not luck, not even hard work? The real difference, the one they never teach you in school, the one that has been passed down quietly through the most powerful families in history, is psychology. The way they think about money. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people spend their entire lives working for money. But the men who built the greatest financial empires in history, they made money work for them. And the reason they could do that goes deeper than strategy. It goes into the mind. Today, on Wealth Untold, we are going inside that mind. We are uncovering the psychological principles that built the Rockefeller dynasty, the Carnegie empire, and the fortunes of Buffett and Morgan. Principles that were never meant to be shared widely. Stay until the end, because the final principle will completely change the way you see money. Forever. To understand how billionaires think, we need to go back. Far back. For most of human history, money was simple. You worked, you earned, you survived. The concept of building wealth, of money creating more money, was considered almost magical, reserved for kings and conquerors. But then came a new breed of individual. Not warriors, not royalty, merchants, bankers, visionaries who looked at money not as something you collected, but as something you deployed. The first and most fundamental shift in billionaire psychology is this. Ordinary people see money as a destination. Extraordinary people see money as a vehicle. It sounds simple, but the implications of that single mindset shift are enormous. And no man in history understood this more deeply or acted on it more powerfully than our first story today. The year is 1855. A 16-year-old boy from a modest family in upstate New York walks into his first job as a bookkeeper. On his very first day, he opens a small leather ledger. He writes down every single penny he earns, every single penny he spends, every single penny he gives away. He would keep that ledger every single day for the rest of his life. That boy was John D. Rockefeller. And what Rockefeller understood, that almost nobody else did, was this. Wealth is not built through spending. It is built through the discipline of not spending. While other businessmen chased quick profits, Rockefeller moved slowly, deliberately, patiently. He studied every deal, every market, every competitor, not to compete with them, but to outlast them. He once said, "I always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity." Think about what that means psychologically. While others feared failure, Rockefeller hunted for it, because inside every collapse, every market crash, every competitor's mistake, he saw an opening. Psychologists today call this adversarial reframing, the rare ability to look at something negative and extract positive value from it. Most people are paralyzed by loss. Rockefeller was energized by it. By the time he was 33 years old, he controlled 90% of all oil refineries in the United States. Not through luck, not through talent alone, through a psychology of patience, precision, and the relentless conversion of problems into power. Now, our next figure arrived in America with nothing, a child of poverty, a family that could barely survive the crossing from Scotland. And yet, by the time he reached his 50s, he had become the richest man in the world. And then, he gave almost all of it away. His name was Andrew Carnegie. To most people, giving away a fortune sounds irrational. But Carnegie had unlocked something profound about the psychology of wealth, something that most rich people never discover. He believed that accumulating wealth beyond personal need was a moral responsibility to deploy for the public good. He built 2,509 libraries across the world, not just as charity, but as infrastructure for knowledge, for the next generation of builders. He said, "The man who dies rich dies disgraced." Now strip away the philosophy for a moment. Look at what this belief did for Carnegie psychologically. It freed him from the trap that destroys most wealthy people. The obsession with holding on, the fear of losing wealth, is the enemy of building it. The moment money becomes something you are afraid to lose, it begins to control you, rather than the other way around. Carnegie never feared losing money, so money never controlled him. And that freedom is what made him unstoppable. Our third figure lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He drives himself to work, he eats simple meals, and he has, at various points in his life, been worth over $100 billion. The contradiction seems impossible until you understand his psychology. Warren Buffett does not think in years, he thinks in decades. He once described compounding, the process of reinvesting returns to generate exponential growth, not just as a financial strategy, but as a philosophy of life. He said, "Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree long ago." Most people make financial decisions based on what they want this week, this month, this year. Buffett's entire psychology operates on a completely different time horizon. Every decision he makes is filtered through a single question: will this matter in 20 years? Psychologists call this temporal discounting resistance, the rare ability to resist the pull of immediate reward in favor of long-term compounding. Time is the most undervalued asset in the world, and the people who understand that earliest build the most. The year is 1907. The entire American banking system is on the verge of total collapse. Banks are failing. Panic is spreading through the streets of New York. The government has no plan. One man steps forward, alone. J.P. Morgan, at 70 years old, locks the most powerful bankers in America inside his private library. He refuses to let them leave until they agree to a rescue plan. And while the panic rages outside, Morgan sits calmly at a small table, playing solitaire. The psychological trait on display in that room was not intelligence. It was not wealth. It was something rarer. Absolute. Unshakable. Confidence in his own judgment under pressure. Morgan once said, "The first step towards getting somewhere is to decide you are not going to stay where you are." Most people, when faced with a crisis, wait for someone else to act. Morgan had built his entire psychology around the opposite impulse, that he was the someone else. That psychological ownership before financial ownership was the foundation of every empire he ever built. Rockefeller turned disasters into opportunities. Carnegie freed himself from the fear of loss. Buffett mastered the art of patience. Morgan claimed ownership of every room he entered. But here is the final principle, the one that ties all of them together, the one that was never taught in any classroom. Every single one of these men believed, at their core, that wealth was not scarce. While the rest of the world operated from a psychology of scarcity, fighting over the same pie, these men were busy building entirely new pies, new industries, new markets, new systems. The true psychology of money, as lived by the greatest wealth builders in history, is simply this: the world rewards those who create value and punishes those who only compete for it. That is the untold truth behind every great fortune. Not greed, not luck, a fundamentally different way of seeing the world. And that is where empires begin. If this story changed the way you think about money, subscribe to Wealth Untold, because we are just getting started. The next story goes even deeper, into an empire so powerful, so secretive, that for 2 centuries, the world barely knew it existed. Do not miss it.